Adoram Shemesh, Patentangels Pulseip founder, show 066. I am Mitchell Chadrow, your host, and this is the Listen Up Show. Today, I'm interviewing Adoram Shemesh. Adoram, it's so really nice to meet you today. How are you?
It's great to be here, Mitchell. Thank you so much for having me. Very excited to be here.
Well, we're excited that you're coming on the Listen Up Show. I know that you're the founder of Patentangels and Pulseip.
First of all, I want to say that, I've been listening to many of your shows and episodes and all the amazing guests and people that you had on the show. But maybe I will be the first one with a thick Israeli accent on the show, so I'll try to compensate with that.
One of the many reasons why you're actually on the podcast is because of your thick Israeli accent. Okay? So all Israelis are friends of mine, and you're always welcome to come back onto the show anytime you want. So no accent at all. We understand you loud and clear. We are listening up to every single thing that you have to say to the audience.
Thank you so much. So going back to your question, so I got into the patent space about 6 years ago. While in Israel, I met an American guy who was deeply involved, still involved in the patent business, transactional business. He ran the online auction IP business for a company, Ocean Tomo, and this is how I got into the space. Since then, we're mainly working. So I was working for this company, and at some point, I shifted and formed my own consulting business. We mainly work with acquisition efforts or buy-side clients for the purpose of defending the services and products that companies have. So this is kind of the high level of what we do.
So can you tell everyone about how you actually help your clients?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question, Mitchell. With Patentangels, we started last year where the goal is to help patent-backed ventures and IP owners to leverage their IP assets via partnerships and, hooking them up with the right partners and manufacturers and investors that they may need for their businesses and products. And this is kind of in a nutshell what we do with Pulseip and Patentangels.
So again, in a nutshell, you're actually helping companies buy, sell, and leverage their patents. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, this is correct.
Okay, great. That's super. And I also see here, we mentioned Israel, and so I do see that you're a member of the Israeli bar. You went to school in Israel, you lived in Israel. Now that you're here in the States, you're kind of like a long ways away from Israel. So what actually brought you to the U.S.?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I married an American great woman, my wife, who is from Ohio, and we moved from Israel to Columbus, Ohio, where we live. My wife's family is from here still, and this was a part of the reason. It was also for business reasons because my business is mainly with U.S.-based companies and the U.S. market, so it was another consideration for when we moved. But now we live in the U.S. Yeah, I went to law school in Israel and became a lawyer. I never practiced as a lawyer, and fairly quickly I got into the IP space, but not on the legal side, more on the transactional and business side. So I'm a lawyer. I'm an Israeli lawyer. I'm not a U.S. lawyer, but I'm an Israeli lawyer and went to law school, but not really practicing law per se.
We interview people all over the world. Last week we interviewed Vanessa Rowan Pierce, and obviously she's from Australia. And was it a major culture shock when you kind of left Israel to come here into the United States and move to Ohio of all places? I mean, you went from Israel to the Midwest, basically.
Yeah.
No culture shock, right?
It's a big difference, Mitchell. It's different in terms of mentality of the people. It's different in terms of the pace. So we moved from the Tel Aviv metropolitan, and we now, as you mentioned, we live in Columbus, Ohio. We didn't move to Los Angeles or New York. So the pace is different, the mentality is different, and the way people think and act is different, especially these days where obviously I still have all my family and friends and everyone in Israel, and these days are rough, and there are some new developments going on in the region after the announcement from the U.S. president and with Iran. There there are a few developments, and it's totally different to live in Ohio than in Israel, for good and bad. But it's a big change for sure.
Well, now that we're good friends here, when I make Aliyah, I'm going to bring you down there with me as my tour guide. How's that sound?
Absolutely, I'll be thrilled to do this. We go to
that's a real mitzvah that you'll be doing there. So, see, I could speak a little Hebrew too. It's really interesting how we actually connected. You actually saw a post on LinkedIn of one of our previous guests, Ron Suber, and right there on LinkedIn you said, "Gee, what a great podcast this is. I'm listening for the second time." Ron is a great guy. He really gives back to startups and entrepreneurs and really the fintech industry. So when I saw that from you and I said, "Gee, who is this guy?" and I saw the name Patent Angels, I thought to myself, I love this name. This is an awesome niche. I've got to have this guy on the show. Maybe you could tell us a little bit more about Patent Angels, Pulseip, and actually what you're actually delivering to your clients.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. So yeah, I came across the post that you had with the Ron Suber show, which is a great guy. I probably don't know him like you do, but I'm really following any piece of content and advice and information from him. Is really a rare combination of a humble, wise, and obviously a very successful guy. He's kind of, my mentor without him knowing about it, but he's such a great guy, and I'm really happy that I came across your show and post and podcast. So again, returning to Patent Angels and the platform, so we saw a need and we started the platform last year. We saw a need, so I'm in this patent business for the last several years, and we saw a need from patent owners and patent-backed ventures and people to really leverage the IP assets that they have. So traditionally, we have ways of selling or licensing or litigating. Some people take loans as putting the IP as a collateral for the loan that they may take. With the platform, we're trying to create something more broad and to help people and inventors, could be small companies or SMEs or bigger guys, to really leverage the IP assets, valuable IP assets that they have. Actually, we came across, as a part of the formation of the platform, we came across an MIT research during late 2016 that showed that companies with patents are much more likely to succeed. In fact, companies or ventures with patents are 35 times more likely to succeed than companies with no patent. And this was pushing us to form the platform and gather more people to be able to help to ventures, again, to leverage their IP assets into partnerships and manufacturing and investment opportunities, and again, anything traditional with IP and patents that could be leveraged or sold or licensed to third parties. So think about AngelList for IP backed or patent-centric initiatives or ventures. So this is what we're trying to create with the platform.
So let me unpack that for the audience, because the audience, they're startups, they're business owners. Some of them are trying to obviously bootstrap early on. They might have an idea where they're thinking about a patent. They don't exactly know how to sort of start or how to begin. The way I'm looking at this is it's really, like you mentioned, an IP-centric. It's an investment platform, and you're at the core is your mission. You've mentioned it a few times. You're empowering companies, again, to leverage their IP assets and let investors invest in these patent-backed ventures, if you will, which, as you just indicated, that study shows increases their chances of success. I almost akin this to like crowdfunding patents. So can you talk to us a little bit more about this concept?
Absolutely. So one of the core and initial angles that we had for the platform is crowdfunding generally. And we know that crowdfunding today means a lot of things. There is an emerging community and space of blockchain-related and ICO and crypto-related initiatives and for people to raise funds online from investors, which generally means crowdfunding. So we do see a shift, and we're trying to watch this shift closely and pay attention to be able to identify opportunities for these patent-backed and patent owners that we work with and how they can best utilize the new emerging opportunities for their businesses. We work with a securities attorney who's based in the Bay Area, and he helps us to advise these companies for their best routes. And really, we see different needs from people. So when we talk to a company or a venture or a startup or a small entity who own IP and they want to, again, empower and leverage the IP assets that they have, we can advise and tell them what we think would be the best course of action for them to go. So either if this would be through the traditional ways of trying to sell or license, or if they want to litigate and they know that someone may infringe upon their IP rights, we can advise on this. This is something that we're historically have been doing. And with regard to crowdfunding, so we really try to see if there is a need for the company to raise funds. The investment arena is also new to me. I am operating in the patent business as a broker and as an intermediary, but the investment arena is kind of new to us, so we're trying to get up to speed and learn more specifically about crowdfunding and the emerging blockchain and ICOs and different tools that people utilize and use these days to raise funds online.
You're really trying to create this marketplace to leverage these patents. Is that also an accurate statement?
Correct, absolutely. So what we've been focused on for the last 12 or 15 months is actively creating partnerships with investors and with branding agencies and manufacturers and other people and companies who can help to the people we talk to who want to empower and leverage their IP. So this is what we're actively doing. We're forming this partnership with various partners and companies who can support this effort. And, it's mainly offline. We do a lot of offline activities and phone calls and introductions and connecting people to the right people that we think can help them further form their companies and support the leverage that they need. A lot of offline activities, but this is you're exactly right. This is what we're trying to do with the platform.
No, that's great. Our startup round is sponsored by TrustSmarter.com. Trusts and estates are not just for the rich and wealthy. TrustSmarter focuses on you, the consumer. Doesn't have to be the person setting up the trust. Could be a family member, a beneficiary, an individual trustee or executor that needs help. There are numerous reasons why people need to set up a trust or need help settling an estate. Consumers needed a better way, an easier, more efficient, and less time-consuming manner available to them to find a corporate trustee or executor. TrustSmarter educates you with articles, free guides, and information on estate planning, using trusts, how to take control of your estate to business and personal assets. You pick the trust company, corporate fiduciary, trustee, executor that is right for you based on your own values and criteria, which you filter yourself in the TrustSmarter platform. That you designate is important to you and your family. For example, you might be looking for a trust company that has no minimum asset size requirement or no minimum fee. You might prefer a trust company that is located within a certain number of miles from your home or business, or you may prefer to work with those who have a certain number of clients or assets under management, or someone that can handle certain types of assets or solutions. Bottom line, you get to decide. There is no high pressure having to go from bank to bank or trust company to trust company. My listeners who sign up back at TrustSmarter.com mention Listen Up at the time they are asked, how did you hear about us? And receive 5% off your trustee or estate fees in the first year. Each trust company on the platform is vetted to ensure that they're in good standing with either their state or federal regulator. You decide the values most important to you. You can easily set up a phone call with any of the regulated institutions. You choose the platform. The platform itself does all the heavy lifting to connect you, the consumer, with the various corporate fiduciaries who want help with your trust and estate. That's TrustSmarter.com. And when asked, how did you find out about us? Type in Listen Up. TrustSmarter is a virtual cash incorporated company. Okay, now back to the show. So a lot of our audience members obviously are trying to generate their own sales, their own business, their own relationships, trying to create their own partnerships. And so in talking to you about those partnerships that you're in the midst of creating right now, tell us a few names and tell us a few stories about that, because I think it helps to motivate and inspire those that are listening in terms of how you're actually doing it. And it also helps to explain a little bit further in terms of how you're building out vertically and horizontally this marketplace.
Right. So this is a great question. Unfortunately, Mitchell, in the IP domain, as you probably know very well, things are very confidential. So for the regular clients and people that we work with for many years, we're not really allowed to disclose names, but we also try to leverage these relationships with these big operating technology companies who are constantly looking at IP and looking at new opportunities, either within their IP divisions or, the investment arms that they have in the company. We're trying to utilize and leverage these relationships into the companies that come to us and ask for help and relationships and connections. Again, it's a bit hard for me to mention names. Some of these names are still in discussions, and we're talking to these, again, mainly investors and large companies who may have interest in participating in this marketplace that we're forming. So again, I'm sorry, it's hard for me to mention names, but I can give you more of the taste of or color of what these guys are looking for and how they think, if you want to. But these are mainly investors and larger companies who have interest in at least seeing and participating in these opportunities.
When I actually go to your website, I see that it says that, of course, you're working with clients worldwide. You don't actually specify exactly who that might be. And you could appreciate from a consumer's perspective, from a customer's perspective, that having certain types of information, whether it be testimonials, might be beneficial to let people know some of those types of people or clients that you've worked with or that you've helped in the past.
Yes, I totally understand this part, Mitchell. It's probably within my consulting business, within Pulseip, probably our biggest problem, so to speak, is that we cannot market and cannot solicit with the current and past clients that we're working with, which are really some of the largest names in the technology area, because we're just not allowed to. Our contracts and agreements are just not allowing us to do this.
Sure. No. And very much as an attorney myself in client confidentiality, even though you're not acting in that role, I appreciate where you're coming from. Maybe let me take the question from this perspective, and I think that it might be very helpful to you in terms of providing us some guidance. How do you actually come to work so closely with these Fortune 500 companies? How do you put yourself in a space and a place where it opens the door for you?
Yeah, this is a really great question. I'm sometimes asking myself how, we came to the situation of working with these guys. So as I mentioned to you before in the beginning of the conversation, I went to work back in Israel. I went to work for this company with this guy who was really a big name in the IP industry, and the company was already working with some big names.
Are you allowed to tell us?
Not really. And I can tell you the technology areas that our clients care about. So we mainly do core high tech. I know very little about pharmaceutical or medical devices or other domains like energy. What we mainly do and what our clients mainly care about is anything core high tech like mobile devices and cloud computing and streaming of media, video streaming or audio and speech recognition. These are the main areas and the main technology domains.
How about like artificial intelligence? You just saw Google Duplex. Are those the high core tech type of solutions that you're also helping clients with as well?
Absolutely. Artificial intelligence is, it's also a buzzword these days, but it includes many elements and aspects of the business of these big tech guys like machine learning and deep learning and speech recognition and computer vision. This is definitely within the scope of what we do. So in terms of the technology areas, this is what we mainly are looking at. And with the platform as well, whenever there is a new company coming and asking for help, we can leverage what they have better with talking to the people that we are working with and have known being in this business for the last several years.
So a lot of these startups, a lot of these business owners who obviously have a patent, whether they have one, they're trying to either defend the patent or they want to try to monetize the patent. It sounds as if your marketplace, your platform of leveraging is prime to be able to help those who want to do this. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you envision that or how it's currently being executed by you?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for the question. So again, we try to look at it as a kind of an angel list, which is a broad look at an industry. Our angle is the patent angle because this is what we historically know and the people and the companies we work with are related to and care about the patent aspects of things. So this is why we chose this angle along with this research that I mentioned that actually shows that companies with patents have better chances of success. And this is kind of our story. Whenever we talk to a new investor, a new group, or a new company, we tell this story and we show this research and we talk about this aspect that patents are sometimes being undervalued, especially in recent years. You probably know about this. There were a few rulings and high court and a few other elements that caused patents to be a little undervalued in the U.S.
I'm going to actually cover that high court case. I'm going to be asking you a few questions about that. A lot of the people in our audience want the step-by-step. They want the nuts and bolts. So how do you actually guide people through the actual process itself? I think that people who want to learn more about intellectual property, since it is so important for their business, to know what that step-by-step process really looks like.
Sure. So one of the initial things that we tell people is if they can, is to go to the platform, and we have a simple, basic application form that asks about 10 or 11 questions for us to have a better understanding about the business and what they have and the current status of their team and the product and the revenues they may have for us to internally talk and check and see if and how we can deliver value. So if we're talking about the patent aspect, and obviously this is the angle of where we come from, we try to, again, look at the overall picture of the company and ask ourselves and ask the owners of the patents or the companies or the products or the ventures, what are they currently looking to achieve? So, for instance, many people would come and say, because this is a patent-centric initiative, many people would come and say, we are small inventors of these amazing technologies and we own the patents for this, and we know that some people might use these technologies and we're trying to figure out what is the best way to go. So if they want to form a company around the patent and they want to be introduced to potential investors who may be interested in the technology that they have, we are trying to think about the current people we know and companies that might have access and ability to help these people. So if the current status is that the inventor only has a patent, it's a totally different story than when a company, it could be a startup or a small company or, again, an SME who comes and says, we have the product, we have the team, we have traction and some revenues, and we have the IP or the patents for the business. And this is a kind of a different discussion, obviously more mature. And if their only goal is to raise money, we can have the discussion around raising the funds with our securities attorney and other people that are involved in this to see if this is really a fit and we can help. Sometimes, again, they would just look for a specific partner that could leverage their technology into an existing service or product by a major technology player. And we have the access sometimes to go to such a player and ask if it's interesting for them to have a discussion. So as I mentioned before, a lot of offline discussions, conversations, connections, and introductions to people that we have access to. It's kind of still the beginning, but we listen a lot to the companies we talk to and to see the feedback and what people want to see and what they need. So again, it's kind of the beginning, but we are doing a lot of offline things to help these companies depending on the specific goals and status that they currently have for their business.
So in a very broad sense, we're obviously broadly talking about IP strategy, whether it be defensive, whether it be offensive, in terms of various different startups, entrepreneurs, business owners, and how they can actually execute on those things, whether it be identifying or negotiating. Talk to us a little bit about how you're helping then, with whether it be patent startup or patent acquisition. So again, both from a defensive perspective and both from an offensive perspective. How do you actually help your clients with that?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Mitchell. So the core of our consulting business with Pulseip is really advising to buy-side clients for mainly defensive reasons, meaning that these companies they have services and products that they want to defend from the IP perspective. And what they do and what we do is we have programs to identify relevant technologies and IP and patents that are applicable and again, relevant to these services and products that they have. And if we see something that we think might be of interest to the client, we would have a discussion with the company or with the patent owner if there is an interest on the other end to have this conversation. And if the client believes that this is a viable portfolio or a patent portfolio for them to own, we would have a deeper discussion and a deeper look at the portfolio to really identify the aspects of the patent as per the priority dates and the scope of the claims. Sounds like you know a lot about patents, so we look at the scope of the technology and the claims in the patents and to see if the patents are really valid and strong in terms of being able to defend these products and services by these guys. So again, this is for the buy-side initiatives that we do with clients.
It's interesting that you should say that because our fast pitch round is actually sponsored by Chadrow.net. That's CHADROW.net. Chadrow.net. Startups, bootstrappers, those who like to leverage resources are price smarter. When hiring an attorney, you apply these same smarter maxims. One of our business's greatest costs can be paying your lawyer high hourly rates. That's why my Listen Up business owner listeners are smarter and turn to Chadrow.net. More and more businesses will use Chadrow.net to start up their businesses from S to C corporations and LLCs and so much more. Be aware that even after your business is set up, running your business properly is critical to your success. Chadrow.net can help you with your contract reviews, lease agreement, changing tax laws, and any other type of legal issue or problem that needs a solution. All this takes time and effort, so you don't want these legal issues to take away from running your business. Your day-to-day main focus is growing your business, so Chadrow.net created a business legal service plan. Just listen up to what the business legal service plan provides you. All lawyers and CPA professionals in the directory are verified as in good standing with their respective state bar and state board of accountancy admitted. These lawyers and CPA professionals provide you and your business with legal and or tax advice. Get access to NDAs, lease agreements, and more. The best part, no more being nickel and dime for a 6-minute telephone call. No more dealing with billable hours because Chadrow.net is not a law firm. Instead, just pay one upfront, fully disclosed low fee. See for yourself now the business legal service plan at Chadrow.net. Special savings today for the listeners of my Listen Up show when you enter Mitchell at checkout. Don't forget Chadrow.net. Mitchell at checkout. Chadrow.net. Get legal solutions for life. Chadrow.net. Enter Mitchell at checkout. Now, let's get back to it. And a lot of my experience with intellectual property, both, we're talking a lot about, of course, patents, but also trademarks and service marks and the like, is with estate planning, trust and estate planning. So not only from a business perspective, but also from a personal perspective. Do you get into any of that with your clients as well, out of curiosity?
So that's a great aspect. We really get to see during these buy-side efforts, we really get to see and talk to any kind of patent owners, I would say. So it could be what we call in the IP language operating company, which is any company that is producing products and services as opposed to just being a holding company of IP, which is totally fine. And we talk to a lot of IP holding companies as well. So the seller could really be a startup company, a small inventor, an SME, a large company that very often the larger companies are selling and buying patents within certain spaces that they care more and care less about, depending on the technology itself. And one more type of companies that we do talk to are IP holding companies. So these could be companies that formed out of estate planning, or someone inherited IP, or it was a startup that didn't make it to where they wanted to make it, and they turned the company into a IP holding company and now exploring different routes for their patent. So when this is the case, and there is an IP owner who wants to just monetize their patents, there are a few ways to go. So one way to go would be to just outright sell the patents to another party, to a patent acquirer or an operating company which has interest in your patent. So this is one way. You can also license your patents to, again, companies that are practicing or relevant to the technologies and the IP that you have. Then again, sometimes people will take a loan and put their IP as a collateral to get the fund. Very similar to what people do with real estate. But I would say that the threshold for receiving a loan with an IP as a collateral is a bit higher than real estate, because patents are essentially different than real estate. Real estate has some value, and in patents, not always, and this is not my opinion, I'm just telling you the market's opinion, patents are not always considered to have value. If the patent is not strong enough, is not well written with the right scope and right date of the patent, not always necessarily it is considered that the patent would have a commercial value.
So how is intellectual property valued then when you're selling a business?
That's a great question. I didn't hear any precise, accurate answer for how you evaluate IP. It really is, like in any other marketplace, it really is in the eyes of the acquirer. So if we have a client that we do a buy-side effort with, and we come across patent portfolio within a sexy domain of technology that is being used and utilized by a lot of people in the industry, the patent buyer or the company could see a lot of value, and sometimes they would be willing to pay a lot of money to buy this patent portfolio because they see this tremendous value in it. And at the same time, we look at many things and we come across a lot of patent portfolios that are just less valuable because of, again, different reasons that I just mentioned. So it really is in the eyes of the acquirer. These guys usually have internal ability and divisions to really take a deep dive into the patent portfolio and look at different elements to determine if they see this value. And again, this value could be defensive or offensive. So some patent buyers historically and actively are buying patents for the reason of litigating and suing other companies, which is totally fine. And it's just their business.
You had alluded to the High Court looking at worldwide patent damages. Have you been personally, from a consulting perspective or on this particular platform, worked with clients in terms of seeking damages?
The answer is yes. I am being very careful with providing, and we're generally being very careful with providing any legal related advice. In myself, I'm not a patent attorney and nor a U.S. attorney.
Correct.
Yeah. So we really try to only advise on the commercial and the business and transactional aspects of the business. Yes, we do work with global clients and companies. We work with companies in Israel, Australia, the U.S., and China, and the global IP market is developing and changing and emerging. China right now is considered to be a much more friendly venue for patent owners than the U.S. Because of...
But how about the issues, though, that have been talked about in terms of how some of the Chinese companies or even the government acquires their technology? Haven't there been issues with that in terms of a fair, level playing field?
It's a great question, Mitchell. I'm very happy to answer this. So China historically has, like you just mentioned, some people would claim that the way of looking at things are especially within the IP perspective, that there is a different way looking at things, and it's fine. We live in a global world with different cultures and different views of people. Specifically for the IP aspect, or I would say specifically for the ability to enforce IP rights. We're talking about legal rights and IP rights. Right now, again, it's considered that China is more friendly from this perspective. If you're asking about about the way that companies and people in China may respect intellectual property generally, I'm not sure that I'm qualified enough to answer. Right. So, I will say this, Mitchell. So currently, and we constantly talk to a lot of people within this industry and inventors and companies that file for patents and prosecute patents with the languages to prosecute for patents. I can tell you that from the point where I got into this industry about 6 years ago, as opposed to today, when you talk to companies today, even if they're based in the U.S. or Europe or Israel or different, Singapore or different places, they would be more inclined and get more advice from their patent attorneys, not from us, because I would never provide advice to people for where they should file their patents. As you know, a patent is a location-based asset or right, because if you are filing in the U.S., you're covered in the U.S., but not in China unless you filed in China. So we do see people these days more inclined to file in China and in other venues. I'm not saying that people don't care about the U.S. anymore, not at all. This is not what I'm saying, but there is some kind of shift, and it was probably an intentional, very thoughtful shift that happened due to people in China and other places thinking specifically about this aspect and how they can attract more foreign filings, more companies, more investment towards these places through the intellectual property. And this is something that a lot of people within the IP industry are talking about these days.
In our wrap-up round, it's actually sponsored by banksmarter.com. It's all about exploring alternatives to traditional banking and balancing it with business, family, and life. So from digital assets to fintech to FinServe and empowering your family through education, more and more consumers are banking smarter, whether it be through credit unions or community banks. Again, head on over to banksmarter.com. That's BANKSMARTER.com. Well, one of the reasons I had mentioned in bringing you on was not just merely to talk about the U.S., but also to talk about patents more globally. And, I just read an article that talks about how the United States just recently dropped out of the top 10 for innovation rankings. And ironically enough, your home country, Israel, comes in at number 10, Tel Aviv, Israel patents with technology. And so I thought that was rather interesting. Can you just talk to us a little bit about that?
Yes, that's a great topic. I'm really excited when you asked this question. Israel is very innovative historically. Lots of acquisitions, lots of patents, lots of innovation. As you just mentioned, Israel came out number 10 on this list, where the U.S. went down just in the last year, which is unfortunate, but is reality. And a part of it is obviously to do with intellectual property rights and the ability of people to do something with their patents, which is a very important and it's on the agenda of the IP market these days. So going back to Israel is very innovative in terms of patents and technology. We've been involved in multiple transactions with Israeli-based technologies and companies who are essentially or eventually selling their technology or patents to mainly U.S.-based, but not only companies who have interest in these technologies and patents. Usually the Israeli-based companies would be the seller as opposed to the buyer. Sometimes there are exceptions to this rule, but mainly Israel is still relatively smaller than other places like the U.S. and China and India. So Israel would usually be the export of the technology or the patents as opposed to the importation. But definitely Israel is in a very good place on the innovation scale and patent scale. Yes, definitely.
I have a book club back at mitchellchadro.com/books. I mean, I love books. You care to share with the audience a book that you're either currently reading or one that you always find yourself going back to that you can recommend?
Yes, absolutely. So I listen to books as opposed to reading. I use this in my car when I commute, and it's absolutely great. I wanted to recommend a book I recently read named Mindset, but then I listened to your interview interview with Vanessa Ronan recently, which was really great, and realized that she kind of stole this recommendation from me.
Yes, that's how I know that book, because of course as soon as she, because I have a link to it on her page, of course, from our last show, which, by the way, you know, everybody who wants to get the show notes here, the show here with Adoram, they can go actually to mitchellchadro.com/show066 and get the show notes, and I certainly will also have another link to Mindset. So that's really great that you know that you actually heard that and you heard her recommendation.
Yeah, so I was just about to say, so this is a great book that I just read, so I want to recommend this, but I actually picked another book because I heard that Vanessa recommended this book. So I want to recommend the book Principles by Ray Dalio. He's a hedge fund manager from Bridgewater Associates. It's a great book that I recently read, and Ray is talking in the book about things like tough love and being radically open-minded to ideas and thoughtful disagreements. He really demonstrates and tells the audience and whoever listens to the book how he created the best performing hedge fund on the planet. So he really talks about what works and what doesn't work, being very honest on the book, and it's just really. He also mentions meditation, which is something that I personally connect to. So it really is a great book, and I really recommend it.
Yeah, no, we're going to have a link to that. Thank you so much for that. Do you have a quote or a mantra for us? Something that you constantly go back to?
Yeah. So the quote I like the quote by Mike Tyson, who said, "Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face." I think it's really relevant to.
Wow, you know, you took me by surprise with that one. So Mike Tyson, huh?
But I just think that this quote from Mike Tyson is demonstrating, especially for entrepreneurs and business owners, I think it's very realistic in terms of what you are envisioning and what reality really looks like when you go through the challenges of creating new ventures and initiatives.
No, that's great. And one last in this fast pitch round that we have here, a hero, someone that you kind of look up to, whether it be from a business success perspective, it could be family, it could be in life, but just somebody from that perspective.
I love my wife and my family, and they are great inspiration. We're a young family, and it's supporting. I'm sure you know all about it. I know that you're in the same position, but I think a family and a good, great wife or spouse is very important to whatever you do within your career. And again, especially if you're a business owner or an entrepreneur, having the strong family cell is, for me, and in my view, very important to the long-term success of an individual.
And it's Mother's Day on Sunday, so all you guys out there, don't forget, whether it be your spouse, your mother, right? We're not gonna forget this weekend. So, Adoram, three main takeaways that we can all take away from today's interview.
Yes, I'm sorry if I'm not going to be so original, but the three takeaways that I have are, the first one would be grit. I really believe that I was reading another book lately called Shoe Dog. I don't know if you have it on your list on your Mitchell Chadro website.
Not yet, but guess what? After this interview, I will.
Okay, that's absolutely great. So it was written by Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, and he was, one of the initial statements, or he opens the book by saying that maybe the only advice that he could provide to people is to just keep going and never give up. And he really says he said that he believes that this is kind of the only real true thing that you can advise to people. And I connected to this when I heard that in the book. So my first thing would definitely be grit and to never give up on your goals and determination. The second thing would be to read a lot. Just read as much as you can. It just helps. Whatever you want to achieve, whatever you want to do, whatever business or industry you want to get involved with, I think reading is really great. Again, I listen to books because it just feels better and more comfortable to me personally, but just reading generally I think is great. And then again, this is something that I found out about not so long ago. So I've been meditating in the last year or so, and I found that meditation really helps you to be more connected to the day, to start the day from a better position, and to really operate from a peak state. So these would be my three takeaways from the conversation today.
No, that's great. And how are people going to stay in touch with you? you, Adoram?
Yeah, so best things would be probably my LinkedIn is great, and my email is Adoram, Adoram, at pulseip.com. These would be the best way to stay in touch, and I always love to talk to new people, and definitely if we can help anyone, this is always awesome.
Well, we're definitely going to have links to all of that, and in the show notes, of course, back at mitchellchadro.com/show066. And, this is an awesome topic, intellectual property. We just wanted to basically cover some of the basic today, and I know that everybody's going to get something out of it. You're definitely going to be our go-to person when it comes to intellectual property. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, and we really want to thank you so much for providing all of this insight and knowledge to all of us, and we just look forward to finding out how your marketplace is coming along, and you could always come back anytime you want.
Thank you so much, Mitchell, for having me. It was great talking to you today. I'm looking forward to staying in touch, and I hope that your audience really enjoyed the show today. Thank you so much.
You take care now. Hey, thanks so very much.
Thank you, Mitchell. Bye.
Bye-bye now. Until next time, my trusted friends, please provide a well-written review in iTunes. Go over to mitchellchadro.com/iTunes. It takes 2 minutes, but it helps others find the show. Subscribe anywhere. We are on Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, or any popular podcast aggregator. One of my favorite is actually Overcast.fm. So if you head on over to mitchellchadro.com/Overcast, you can subscribe on that podcast aggregator. Again, sign up back at my website for the latest podcasts, more articles, and send me an email about your business startup, and I'm happy to respond back at mitchellchadro.com/signup. Thank you again, and I look forward to our next show.